So, you remember when that huge poker craze broke out about 10 years ago? I don't know exactly why it happened, but Texas Hold'em was just everywhere for a while. All of a sudden ESPN decided card games were a fucking sport and they broadcast the national championships. A couple years later, ESPN made a dramatic revenge series based around poker, and then in 2006 it was the central theme of the film that rebooted the James Bond franchise. Of course, poker is still very popular today, but you don't see so many movies in which it's played to decide the fate of the world anymore. On the other hand, if a gambling game has ever been popular in Japan, then chances are somebody's made a manga out of it. And in Japan, no such game is more popular than mahjong. Here's where I would briefly describe the game of mahjong, except I still don't fully understand the rules myself. So whatever. There have been a number of mahjong manga written over the years, and while I haven't read any of them aside from the one featured in this video, I have seen the anime adaptation of Akagi. It's pretty fucking awesome. Now, Akagi tells the story of how a teenager becomes involved in Japan's gambling underworld, which makes it very different from the legend of Koizumi, or as it's officially titled, Mudazamon Naki Kai Kaku. The legend of Koizumi is set in a world in which all political matters, and especially matters of international diplomacy, are decided through mahjong. The world's leaders are thus by necessity the greatest mahjong players in the world. The protagonist of the series is Koizumi Junichiro, the real-life former Prime Minister of Japan. In fact, the grand majority of characters in the series are based on real-life figures, both contemporary and historical. Along with possessing supernaturally good luck, which is pretty common among world leaders in the series, Koizumi employs a special technique called the Gomo Pai to physically mangle his mahjong tiles into a winning hand, most commonly his signature Rising Sun. And this is just the starting point of all the ridiculous stuff featured throughout the series. Mahjong playing ability is the ultimate power in the manga, to the point that playing someone with vastly superior skills can literally kill you. At one point, Koizumi plays against the Pope, who physically decimates him while reciting a mahjong-themed version of Genesis 1. This is the moment that completely sold me on this series. From this point I knew this manga was going to be absurd and amazing, and it did not disappoint me. Now, The Legend of Koizumi is supposedly a satirical work, but I disagree with that description. Most of the people that appear in the manga are portrayed very positively, rather than being ridiculed. There are a few exceptions here and there. For example, Kim Jong-il shows up as a pure evil half-wit who gets turned into a goofy-looking cyborg, but come on, it's Kim Jong-il. Other than a few Japanese politicians, nobody else really gets mocked in this series. There is also very little discussion of actual politics, let alone satirizing them. And that's more than likely because very early on the main conflict in the series stops being an international struggle for resources, and instead becomes a straightforward battle of good versus evil. With the fate of the world at stake, naturally, because why the hell wouldn't the Earth be in danger in a manga like this? Now, most fictional works that depict one nation or group of nations as the good guys and their enemies as the bad guys tend to come across as propaganda works, but not The Legend of Koizumi, because the main antagonist is Hitler. Literally, Hitler. Yeah, it turns out Adolf never really died and the entire Nazi regime lives on as the Fourth Reich. Matter of fact, Goebbels, Mengele, Skorzeny, none of them died. They've just been hanging out on the moon for the past 60 years. And now the moon Nazis are all set to carry out their plans of world domination, and the only ones that can stop them are 5 world leaders with attitude. Koizumi Junichiro, George Bush Sr., Pope Benedict XVI, Vladimir Putin, and some woman who was Prime Minister of Ukraine for a few years, apparently. Okay, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against Yulia Tymoshenko, but compared to everything else going on in this series, her inclusion just feels weak.
I come from Ukraine. You not say Ukraine weak?
I don't know, maybe I just feel kind of burned because the manga specifically teases Margaret Thatcher being the 5th member of the team and then goes, nope, she's too sick and needs to be replaced. Again, nothing against Tymoshenko, but she's no Iron Lady. Anyway, once the Nazis show up, the manga immediately kicks up to an entirely different tier of awesome and does not stop escalating from there. The first major game in the battle with the Nazis features Putin taking on zombified Richard Wagner. Wagner was naturally resurrected through the surgical techniques of the evil Dr. Mengele, who keeps his brain in a jar. Hitler is of course the final villain, and this... my god. Just look at this. My friends, you are looking at Super Bishonen Adolf Hitler. This is without a doubt the best possible interpretation of how Hitler gained a following. And it only gets better, because over the course of his game with the Pope, Hitler gets pushed into a corner and is forced to use his full power, thus revealing his true form as a Super Aryan. This is so great. This is so great. I'm pretty sure that by this point, if you're not sold on the series, there isn't anything I can say to get you to check it out. So let me repeat myself. In this manga, Adolf fucking Hitler goes Super Saiyan in order to win a mahjong match against the fucking Pope. Base whether or not you decide to read this manga exclusively on that one sentence. However, outside of this and other moments similar to it, there are some good things about this manga that I think deserve mention. The Legend of Koizumi is certainly a humorous series, and you should not take it seriously in any respect. The basic premise is outlandish and silly, and the execution of that premise only becomes more outlandish and silly as the plot unfolds. With that said, some of the writing in the series is absolutely fascinating. It would have been easy enough for the manga to have made its entire cast into one-note joke versions of themselves, as some of the minor characters come across, but a truly good parody does not settle for the easy jokes. It's clear that mangaka Owada Hideki actually did his research and drew on the histories of the people he was talking about to determine how to portray their fictional counterparts. So, while the characters are still caricatures of the real-life people that they represent, they are informed caricatures. And those caricatures aren't always played just for laughs. Hell, George W. Bush has a very interesting character arc, beginning as a complete joke villain and eventually becoming one of the world's great heroes after he overcomes his greatest flaws. It's weird to say this, but W's love of baseball and place in the Bush family are used to surprisingly touching effect, and in the end, he was one of my favorite characters in the manga despite the fact that he doesn't really get to do very much. Also, at one point, he's drawn as a Yankee with a pompadour, which is apparently standard for members of the Skull and Bone Society. Damn, this manga's awesome. Okay, so yeah, this ain't the manga equivalent of Ernest Hemingway or nothing, but the series has a bunch of good, memorable moments in it. It's a good series to read if you're looking for something fun and simple that won't ask you to do much in order to understand what's going on. You shouldn't expect this manga to teach you how mahjong is played, but on the other hand, you don't really need to understand the game in order to enjoy it. It's a great series to pick up quickly, provided you appreciate its sense of humor. Mudazumo Naki Kaikaku is not officially available in English and probably won't ever be, considering the type of work it is, but it has achieved an unexpected degree of success in Japan. Along with the collected volumes selling well, the manga was adapted into a 3-episode OVA in 2009. However, like the manga, it's not available in English except in the form of fan-made subs. The Legend of Koizumi is amusing, entertaining, and you don't have to take it seriously. In fact, you shouldn't take it seriously. Remember how we ruined Gurren Lagann that way? Let's stop doing that. Like, forever. Anyway, I'm my ruler of time. Until we see each other again, forget what they taught you in school, always read right to left.
Ukrainians came to you? How about I take your little boras from there?